Hello.
We're going to do.
Yeah, we've got to do a quick hello, mate. How you doing? Lovely. We have got
10 minutes to go through this bit.
I'm still trying to get comfortable. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
You're not too bad.
Good man.
We've got a gentleman with us that's wearing a daddy.
Oh, daddy. That's what he likes to be called.
I love it.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not daddy, I'm Don. No, my daughter has this same style T-shirt, so it's obviously in that context, it's cute. But I did actually go to Vegas last December, and walking through Vegas, obviously I was holding my wife's hand, but I had a couple of people as they walked past, they were like, "Oh, daddy," and I was like, "Of course." So it takes a whole different angle on the shirt.
What did your daughter say? It doesn't say daddy as well, does it?
No, it says daughter, so obviously daddy.
My wife's got one that says mother on it. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but if it said mummy, it might be different, you know?
Well, that's a wild start we've had some wild starts, but that's I didn't quite.
So I've known Don for, well, I don't know. I reckon, I don't even know. 2020. Yeah, roughly around then. I mean, you've got an incredible story and everything like that. I feel like we need to we're gonna have to do a part 2. But yeah, I mean, obviously you have retired from rugby, haven't you now? Or have you? Yeah. And you're doing your own podcast as well. Tell us a little bit about that. Yes, I mean, a quick rundown. I from Zimbabwe moved to South Africa, came to England because of rugby, played for a team called Stormers there, then came to play for Exeter Chiefs, ended up playing for England a couple of games. Retired 2 years ago. Just before I retired, I tried to start the Gaming Athlete or GAS, and then realized I was no good at that when I retired. Then 4 months later, bought a leadership development business called Don Armand, or I changed the name. And then in the process of that, because of what I liked with the Gaming Athlete and where the passion was with that, and then trying to enhance the leadership side of things, because I bought that to be like, okay, how do I learn as quick as possible? I can learn from other businesses. So I bought a business that teaches it. In the process, I was still finishing GAS off by doing the streams and everything. It was like, you need to start a podcast. But I never really wanted to start the gaming podcast because there's so much more to talk about. So I was like, if I was to start one, what would that be called? Then in the back of my mind, something was like Identity Human, because we're all about identity, where that comes from, how we build resilience, what actually is important, how we learn lessons. And then off the back of that, I've started the brand called Identity Human, which is actually it's like a digital course. The podcast is one thing that we talk about, but actually what I'm trying to do is create challenges that make a difference, that if you just did the 5-day challenge, it could change the whole outlook on life. And then if you like that, you can do the course. The course is pre-recorded and group coaching into a community. And obviously the end goal with that is very similar to what GAS was, but a lot more applicable to what means something to me. So, yeah. Wow. So you really, I mean, I didn't know that last bit, obviously, because I think I just sent you the obligatory Merry Christmas text message. I've not really spoken to you since the GAS days, but that's incredible. So what the Identity Human? So is that all about, kind of self-development and everything like that? Yeah, I always try and think, what's the one sentence I could give to describe what Identity Human does, and it's probably it's unfortunately the classic of getting you to unleash your full potential, or getting you to really be able to answer the question, who am I? And understand how you can go through the struggles of parenting, owning a business or leading, or just what the speed of the world at the moment. And it's this thing where I'm you've come across so many people and you can just change a life in a sentence because they've got a struggle, and you go, well, actually, this is another way to look at it. And they go I never thought about that. And I'm there's so many people that have that same narrative. And I'm Identity Human's got to be a vehicle that can just put you into somewhere, teaches you a language to help, mind by design kind of thing, to actually, so you can be proud of who you are, so you can be proud of the person you are. And if that can help you, then in, 20 years time, I got 4 kids. When they've grown up and you've affected someone in a positive way, then that effect you've had on that person then helps my kids in their own way. And then our great-great-grandkids are still enacting principles and characteristics that we did now without knowing that it was us. So, yeah.
This is good. I didn't expect, do you know what? I didn't, because I don't know who you are, Don. Because of the way we approach our podcast.
Got all posters of him up in your bed.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. There we go. My girlfriend put them up. So and because Steve said about getting you on, so great. Steve said, it'll be a good chat. So I've got a mate that's a big rugby fan, and I said, chap from Zimbabwe. He used to play for Exeter. He's like, oh yeah, Don, yeah. He says a fucking monster, and I'm like, oh right, okay. But what neither of us do is if we don't know the other. So if I get a guest on, we don't ever do any research on that person because it's almost like I just want to hear it firsthand rather than a pretense of. And literally, all I know is you're a monster at rugby, supposedly, and you're from Zimbabwe, and that's it. And actually, I didn't expect you to start off with the daddy, which is wild. And then also, I didn't expect you to be talking the way you are about, like, you've bought this business and where you're trying to coach people. So I'm a bit, I'm on the back foot, if I'm honest.
So where's that come from, Don? That coaching background? Because, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, obviously from the outside, you've had a tremendous career. I know you've got kids, you've got wife you've been with for ages, like, where's that come from? That kind of desire? Is it come from inside, like your own struggles that you've had, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that there's two avenues that I'm toying with at the moment, because there's one thing called a sacred flaw. So your sacred flaw is the thing that you're compensating for in everything that you're trying to do. So you've got a sacred flaw. Albert Einstein could have been trying to prove how clever he was to the world because someone called him stupid when he was younger, right? So that's something that's created that you're now trying to make up for from your past. And I've got possible reasons there. But then there's also the other side, which is nature and the temperament that you've got. And I think when you talk about finding purpose and knowing personality, like certain personality types, or I'll talk like, what's your gift? If you can find what gives you energy and it aligns with what your gift is, then you naturally will gravitate to the things that allow you to do that. And so if you have both, then that's probably a really powerful product, isn't it? So I could say, why do I want to help people with their identity? If you look at my timeline, it was, I moved from Zimbabwe to South Africa. So there's a whole shift on everything that you've rooted in, and junior school. And then you move to senior school and you're starting completely afresh. So you're learning new friends. You don't have any memories that you created. Relationships are all gone. So you're then trying to fit in and then moving again. But, so going to senior school, we moved once a year, every year for 7 years. So you're constantly changing. And then you find yourself, I come over to England and I'm playing for Chiefs. And there's still a thing inside of you that goes, I don't really quite feel like I fit in. Why is that? And then you start to dive into identity. I hit rock bottom with rugby because of injuries and not being in the team anymore. So you get your death of your ego, death of identity, and you have to recreate yourself. And then you start to realize what you need to build up. So there's a part of that leads you towards if that's really helped me and I see people have the same struggles, then obviously I'm going to say, like, one of your most important things is knowing who you are. How do you find that out? Well, this is where I'm going to bring temperament. And then I've got, the more I get to learn about myself and the various different routes I've gone, is I like to go to source. So I like to go deep. I'm not going to talk, level 100. I'm not going to tell you to make your bed and that's going to make you better. I'll tell you why making your bed makes you better. And actually, now that you know that, it's not making your bed, it's something else that you've thought of, because I've helped you think for yourself, because I think we're far too much copy and paste in the world. So there's two ways to go about it, but I have to understand both so that I can then apply that in the right context with whoever I help. So I think there's an element that naturally I would always have led myself towards something that was esoteric. So it's like a bigger than self. Like I'm thinking 60 years, 100 years in time, I can tap into that. And then how am I going to help people? Well, I've actually got the lived experience of why this works. I've, lived with my mom, or my mom's lived with us for 9 years, seen what she's gone through, learned her lessons and seen what actually helps her. And I think one of the bigger reasons why I've got Identity Human going is it's hard to go into the world where there is a certain narrative that you have to adhere to help people. You can't fix them. You've got to just listen. And I feel like we were getting led into this completely disempowered mentality where it was like, talk about your problems. So people go, this is my problem. And then we go, okay, thanks for sharing. I'm moving on now. And you've just gone, well, I've told you how I feel, and now you've just left me. And I don't feel any better about myself because actually, this is not what I'm here for. Like humans we're meant to live a purpose. We're meant to experience life. So actually it was like, I'm not going to go into that world and risk being cancelled or whatever it is. So come into my world. When you come into my world, I'll believe in you more than you can believe in yourself. I'll take you from disempowered to empowered by telling you that, yes, you've got stuff that you have to deal with, but that's a gift. Now let's talk about it and let's make sure that we're moving that forward and getting the best out of yourself. And I'm going to push you a little bit and I'm going to lead you a little bit, but it's going to be in a way you want.
I was thinking exactly the same thing. Can I go back to South Africa? I went there, me and my girlfriend went there for 2 weeks on holiday between a couple of mates, been out there quite a bit, and they said, you've got to go out, because I'm a chef, private chef. So you've got to go out for the food. Food's amazing. Anyway, like the most extraordinary holiday we had. Went sort of Cape Town and then Durban and sort of up round. But I was quite upset by how sort of two ends of the spectrum there is there, how much poverty and how much wealth and how people, there's a real struggle there, which I didn't expect to see.
Yeah.
It makes me really, really upset, actually. But with you living there for such a long time, was there a period when Steve was saying about, and I've just lost my train of thought completely, but basically my point is there any particular point when you were growing up in Zimbabwe, or maybe when you got to South Africa, where you can really see a change, where you're like, do you know what, I need to do something with my life, or where there was a struggle that made you feel like, right, I need to push through this? Was there any point where you go back through your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, I need to change the world. Because I don't think it's that. I think inherently I'll naturally act out that, like, I know that if I'm in this situation, I'm going to make the most of it. So I've always been able to see the positive side of things. I think it was more getting an experience, I was a farmer in Zimbabwe. So we saw, we were the farmer and you had people living in a compound. So you saw that like duality of privilege. Going to South Africa, you saw that even more because you're a white male and then there's people living through apartheid era and you get to see beggars, you get to see people on the street, you get to go to university with people that have had that background but being able to come there. So you're interacting with a completely different cultural and like backgrounds and you get to know their stories. So you get to really understand human essence, if that makes sense. So me living in England, I become that, like I've put in inverted commas, toxically positive person because I won't complain about the weather. I'll be like, listen, it's just rain, but it's a naturally British thing to do, isn't it? Like, oh, the weather's terrible. I'm like, go live in South Africa and you'll realize how great this country is. Or, even someone today was like, as usual, the bus was half an hour late. And I was like, well, you're lucky you got there alive. If you're in South Africa, you don't know if that's coming. They don't actually have that. And there's so many different perspectives that I've had to live through that allow me to bring that here. So yeah, I don't think there was a moment. And I think if you've ever heard of certain terms where a lot of small things add up to be a lot greater than one big thing, that's how I would summarize my journey. Is like, there's been a lot of small things that I've taken note of inherently because that's what I observe, that led to a point where I've seen other struggles. I've had my struggle. And then I'm like, okay, how do I then make a proper difference? Because I do have 4 kids. I am invested in a better future. So how do we make sure that we are lifting people up as we go?
Yeah. So when did you talk about your rugby career? What age did you start playing rugby? Where on earth did ended up in Exeter of all places?
Yeah, I think I was always naturally sporty. I lived on a farm, like I said, so my weekends weren't in front of the TV. They were riding a bicycle for like 8 hours around the farm, going to the dam and back and to the shed, and you're just out all the time. So naturally active. Then you go to junior school in Zimbabwe is really well set up. So I could play I play 4 sports a term. So you get dropped off at 7, picked up at 6:30 because I would go school, hockey, swimming, and then the next day is like school, tennis, swimming, and you just summer sport, winter sport, you're just busy 5 days a week. Which then moving to South Africa, I went to an all boys school, so like 1,200 boys, and it was a predominantly rugby school. So I was like, okay, I've got to make it in rugby, and I think there's like a need for significance that's in my personality. So if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well. And so if there's a first team, I'm going to be in the first team. But it's like a quiet significance as opposed to that like boastful bash your chest kind of thing, which ended up getting me to being just good enough to make representative teams, and then going to university to study psychology and organizational psychology, being lucky enough that the timing of that coincided with a really good coach and getting a bursary. I don't even know how I got the bursary, but, you know, Charlie van Rieenen, he died in the Bali bombings. His parents were then like, okay, how can we honor his memory? I was the first recipient of that bursary. Don't know how I got it. It was off like character and things that the coach then decided who needed it the most. So I was able to carry on studying because of that. So there's so many different things that like timing, the serendipity and all that kind of thing that allowed me to play well enough for, you know, helping Charlie's name and just really enjoying that environment, to getting a lucky break into the Stormers setup because there were like 4 injuries and I was just ready at that time. Like I'd worked hard enough. When it came along, I did what I did. They were long enough term injuries that I was playing in place of Springboks and international players. So then people like, oh, here's Don Armand. He's playing in place of Schalk Burger. And then so people like, oh, who's Don? Which then gets me noticed overseas, and you get an agent that like knows how to find the right deal. And then he gets me over here off the back of my hard work and his timing. And then, yeah, that's how I came to Exeter.
Wow.
Wow.
And that was in 12, 13?
2013.
2013. Because Exeter wasn't... It's funny because Exeter, they've probably been really good now for at least 10 years. And at least 10 years. Huge, you know, it's a huge bloody stadium there along the M5. But they never used to be particularly good. It was, you know, Cornwall have always had a really good national rugby team. But you've got like Red Ruth, Campbell. It's always like, we've always been known as being half decent sort of county at rugby. But then Exeter, I don't know what it was, whether they had an injection of money. Just all of a sudden.
Don joined. Oh, that's what it was.
That's exactly what it was.
It was timing. I think that I got there when they'd been in the Premiership for 2 years. So they were just on their rise up. We had you had like Steno, Knowles, like a whole lot of the academy players that had been building this momentum. And then I came in and managed to make enough of an impact alongside that. And then we just had a really good run, like 6 years in the final, end up winning the double. And yeah, I think it was just momentum, timing. There was a lot of good timing in my journey, the right place at the right time. So, you know, university, that under 20s team, my first year, we went unbeaten for the first time. And I don't know if it had even been done at university. When I went into the senior squad, we won the league for the first time in 33 years. We beat Stellenbosch in a double. It's called like the intervarsity match for the first time in 33 years, or whatever it was. So like, there were just a whole lot of winning moments that added up together, and then get to Chiefs and we win LV Cup for the first year. Then you win the Premiership, and you win it again, then you win the double. And so, yeah, there was just a lot of good moments that I happened to be part of in that journey.
Yeah. Interesting hearing you talk like that, Don, to be fair. And I might be wrong with this, but obviously I really love what you're doing with, you know, your new venture, and hearing you talk about the methodologies and how, you know, in your sacred floor and things like that. I really kind of gel with that. But it's also interesting to hear you when you're explaining your kind of journey, kind of, you know, batting it away a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Batting away all your hard work because it was just good timing.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's good.
It's not the fact you join places and then you're winning things. Oh, I just happened to be
just
there.
Just this,
you know, a little bit.
And you know that's not true, surely, because, I mean, you know.
I mean, to answer that in a quicker fashion, it's very easy in a team environment to give credit to everyone else. So, you know, in a final, I get mad at in the Premiership final, the first one, I got mad at the match. But if you'd asked me, I would have just been like, I have no idea how I got that. Like, they were just the team won on the day. It's so easy in a team environment to be extra humble, and I don't mean humble in like a falsely humble kind of way. It is who would I be to say, oh, I was the reason? I know I was part of, and I've had to learn to even take a little bit of that like credit, but I still will never be the kind of person that goes, you know, I was the secret ingredient in all these.
No, you can tell you're very humble.
No, but
you see that.
Even when you're talking about, you know, even when you go right back and you're talking about, you know, you went to high school, and you know, and you obviously, you know, let's go right back. Yeah, you did sports. You didn't have to do sports after school. You could have still done sports after school, but you could have just, just been all right. Like, not really tried, not really, So there's a lot of effort that's gone into who you are today. And I appreciate you might not want to hear that. There's the flip side, and we had Clark Carlisle on a few months ago, and he was talking to us about, apart from his other struggles and challenges, he was talking to us about the pressures of being and playing in a team, and all the expectations and everything like that. And
he's a Premiership footballer from the 90s.
Okay, yeah,
just to fill in the gaps.
And I guess that's my kind of thing for you, really, is that extra bit of pressure that you have, and how always having to do games, and you obviously managed to kind of go through and always give it your best, and obviously you've got your family life and everything like that, and now you've kind of come out the other side. And you alluded to it earlier when you said about then all of a sudden not having rugby and not having that team environment. I mean, how did you deal with all of that?
I'd done 2 London marathons and the 3 peaks since I retired. Because I think it was one of those where it was the first time I really got to be myself without being rugby Don. And I realized that there was an element of me that had this point to prove. And I've still got it. It's like, I want to be more successful out of rugby than I was in rugby. And so I know what that's going to have to take, because people are like, oh, you played for England. How are you going to top being in the top 1% of the top 1%? And I'm like, okay, well, watch me. But what I'm going to have to do in that process is I'm going to have to challenge myself, 4 kids, owning your own business, still doing those challenges, and just trying to keep turning pressure into privilege, and what that actually takes. Because if I'm genuine, I think integrity is a big thing, is if I'm genuinely going to be helping people out in their toughest moments, I need to know what it's like in a tough moment to lift yourself up. And I think, there's lots of ways to go around it. And how did I deal with it? It was, first of all, taking responsibility and trying to buck the trend that everyone buys into, which was, you'll really struggle after rugby. Rugby players will generally lose, or, athletes will generally lose everything they've built up within the first year or two. It's really tough out there. You'll never be as successful. You'll never earn more money than you would in sport. The trend was drink, go on drugs, whatever it was, and just, it's a really tough pathway. And I was like, well, that's one narrative. So if that's going to disempower you, I'm going to do everything that's the other way, so that anyone else that follows after me can see that there's a different narrative. And I think so. It was like taking on a greater than self type of thing. And I know people say, don't do it, you don't know anyone, anything. And it's like, well, actually, I do believe in human connection, and that we all have a responsibility on each other to, if we're very well connected with social media, then that connection needs to be used to show the good, not just the bad, because we happen to have a toxic cancel culture, which is, don't put anything good online, because then you're just boasting. And it's like, well, how do we see what good looks like if we only put the bad on? And so it's just trying to get used to that.
No, you said something really true earlier on, and it's something I've said to my kids about, and it's something I wouldn't say it out loud unless you've said it, because Steve always says, you can cook, you're really good at cooking. I'm like, yeah, I know, yeah, whatever, and I bat it away. And you said a minute ago, you showed you were confident, but you didn't let people know you were confident, basically you kept it within. My kids are 22 and 18. I've always said to them, no matter what you do in life, always make sure you go in with something, like go into a room and you're the most confident motherfucker going, but you do not let anybody know that. Because as soon as you're like Billy Big Balls, people are like, oh, he's going to fall, he's fucking rubbish, or he's going to fail. But if you just go in under the radar, but you know you're the greatest fucking person. Like if I go into a dinner party, I'm shitting bricks, but I know I'm taking control, and they're paying me to cook, but I'm in control this whole evening. And I fucking love how humble you are. And I'm so glad I've been to South Africa to see not how you grew up, but what a very, 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 very small part of that country. I think you're a fucking top bloke in the way you talk. I'm a little bit taken aback, if I'm honest. You're like, really lovely. I love the fact that you said that, because I really felt connection with, you must be a good human being. I don't know, I'm rambling a little bit, but does that make sense? No, but the point, not a point, but the question I was going to say was, you clearly have some fucking drive inside of you. Do you think like you just said a minute ago about, look, I want to prove, and I'm exactly the same, I want to do different to what people say you're supposed to do. And you said about when you retired from rugby, you didn't want to be that person that was like, what, hit, drink, drugs, and lost all your money. So you're doing the opposite, which is fucking brilliant. But do you think the way you were brought up and the way you were raised in South Africa and Zimbabwe made you realise that actually you can go in deeper than anybody else to achieve an outcome? Fucking hell, I was long-winded.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's the way I was necessarily raised. I think obviously I have to give credit to my mom she would always like believe in me no matter what. So like almost like the toxic positively belief. But it's the one thing that I think we all need, is that all you have to do sometimes is believe in someone more than they can believe themselves, because you will be your own worst enemy at times. But I think anyone, I believe anyone has the ability to raise their stakes so much, but what we don't have is someone around us allowing us to do that. So you can only raise to the level of your awareness. And I think that's the one thing. There's been a few wake up moments that have allowed me to just see things slightly differently. You know, my wife is, if you met her, she's almost even more of a trend bucker and a trend setter with the way she does things. So she's allowed me to learn from her. And then at the same time, then she learns from me. And so we almost create, like, we're opposites in personality, but it creates this interesting ping pong of like, where I'll do one thing, she'll learn from it, and she'll do one thing, I'll be like, oh, we can do that. And then I'll maximize that like trajectory, and then she'll do the same thing the other way. So we almost are creating this really good like friction point between us and the way we do things, that we've had to learn to like taper it down sometimes. And there's been some really interesting moments since I've retired, because some of the man challenges of wanting to provide, but at the same time wanting her to finally have the space, because she's driven, to do her thing, because she spent 9 years completely supporting my rugby career. So then it's like, okay, now it's over to you. But then also realizing that actually, how do I better support that? But at the same time, hold on, I have something inside of me that tells me that this isn't right. Even though I thought I'd be able to sit back and just watch you go, actually, that's not me. So how do we then create an environment that is supportive and not trying to bring each other down or have a competition as to who's working harder, who's tired at the end of the day, and shift that mindset into being like, I know you're tired. I know I'm tired, but I'm taking responsibility. This is the life that I've chosen to live. How do I raise this up? And I think the most important bit for me is that it's not fake. So it's pretending to the art. Like, I've got a big thing to say that what you see on my social media is what's happening if you came into my home, because I think that authenticity is really important at the moment. So it's bucking that trend too. That's why if you watch our podcast from like episode 1, it's not perfect. It's like, there you go. You can see it. Some of the editing is really poor.
We don't even edit.
Yeah, we don't even edit.
It's what you see is what you get. So yeah, I think it's an important journey to go on.
I need to. You and your wife do the podcast together?
It's funny.
I need to get into that. And that's not me doing any research on you, because I didn't want to know about you respectfully. I wanted to take you now as it is.
I was watching some pubs the other day.
Got to get into that. I reckon it's going to be good.
And, well, Don's absolute. Of course, he's right. It's his wife, but you know, the energy, they just bounce off each other. Like it's. I can't remember what I was watching. I was watching a clip. It was just a clip of one of the episodes, I think, and you were doing something, and I think she had said something you were meant to say, and you were like, oh, I was going to say that. And it was just like, it's just, the energy is
check that out. No. Was that a weekly thing, monthly thing, or?
Weekly, yeah, weekly.
Weekly.
It is crazy.
We'll have to see who's got more subscribers.
I reckon.
Well, see, I don't get really bugged by that, whereas Ray does. So I'm like, it's a journey. I know we're going to get there, and we're not going to stop no matter what.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
he's like you with more hair.
Yeah, cheeky bastard.
We've been stuck on 99 subscribers for like a month and a half on Spotify, and she's like, "We're not growing. It doesn't." And I'm like, I mean, I'm not really putting in the effort to grow at the moment. I'm just making sure that we are putting out there. But it's an important combination.
Yeah, you're exactly the same. You're like, oh no, we're not hitting big enough numbers. I was like, dude, let's just do what we do, enjoy what we do, put it out there. Let's just get some cool people like you on. Yeah, we've been together a year.
Yeah, that was
Congratulations,
what,
guys.
52 or 53 episodes.
Yeah,
it has been a journey. But have you? I mean, I know we have a few minutes, so I've got two very quick questions. Have you, mental health wise? I mean, obviously, I imagine you're finding some of the people that you're working with, some of their, I guess, limitations or challenges that they're having are going to be a part of that's going to be mental health. What about yourself? Has that been part of your journey? Any kind of mental health kind of struggles and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to answer that because, if you define someone having depression, what is that? What does that look like? And I could have gone through it and just been so blinded to the fact there's depression and just gone, I was really low. So there was obviously a time in rugby where I played through an injury for like a year and it just broke me down mentally to a point where I hated rugby. I didn't want to be playing it. I would come home and cry. I'd cry after sessions because it was just pain. It was just so much mental like battles going on. And so you just want to remove yourself from the situation. And that's where I was saying like the dark nights of the soul kind of thing is like everything in terms of your identity you built up. And then suddenly injury starts to hamper you, but then you play through it, and then which makes your game worse. This ends up you getting, not selected or dropped as captain, dropped as defense, and all that you built up. And I had that as a big moment because I was like, that all got ripped away from me. And then what I have to do to try and build that up, and how did I end my career really in a great space because I'd removed the pressure of being Don the rugby player and just gone, I'll just be Don that plays rugby. And so recognizing recognizing the subtle difference and how, and even post rugby now, there's been a lot more of those in short succession because you go again into like owning your own business and there's a lot more rejection and a lot more like, I don't know this. What am I doing? Am I doing this right? And you put the provider tag on from a man's point of view. And you now want to be a provider, but you can try really hard and it's not going to bring in any more money. So there's been those kinds of battles and I don't have anyone working with me. So it's like I'm sat on my computer on my own with no one to talk to. So it's really about being able to like everything that I teach in Identity Human, I've had to apply to myself first and foremost. And is that making a difference? At the same time, I've got, we send our dog to a friend that has PTSD once a week. So he takes him for a week and we keep him for a week. And so I'm talking to him and he's obviously losing friends left, right and center because they ex-service and they have their own struggles that they succumb to. And he's there like pitching on my doorstep, like almost in tears. And I'm then having to just give a bit of advice here or there and noticing the change in him. And so it's almost like not trying to take theory out of a textbook, but also going like, what words does a man need to hear in the darkest moments to just change their perspective? And it's right on the other side, but they can't see that unless you turn it for them. And so, there's been not only my experiences, but everything that I've seen helps, knowing that, there are struggles, but actually it's, sometimes you have to hear a hard truth. It's a choice. And what do you mean it's a choice?
It's not always easy. Yeah, it's not always easy to hear.
Right, we got one more question.
One quick question. You've got to ask this.
We have to meet
Don,
again.
What we've got to ask him it quickly.
I know. Go on, get it out quick.
What is your definition of love?
Okay, a great question. My definition of love is knowing what your boundaries are and loving yourself so much that you don't need to get it from anyone else. So therefore, you can give it to everyone else without expecting anything in return, which means that you're bringing the best version of yourself and giving it to the people that you love so that they can do the same and learn the same. So then therefore you are giving a give relationship instead of a give-take. That's love. Love is loving yourself first so much that you don't need it from anyone else, so that when you do get it, it's lovely to have. But you're not reliant on it.
I've never fucking seen anybody bat that straight back. Like, you just smashed that rugby ball straight into my face. Like seriously, I can't. That is amazing. I've never seen that like that.
No, it's incredible. Thank you so much, and
But-
we will definitely have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
Thank you so
make it
much
longer.
for
Nice, yeah.
really good.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, that was
Cool.
yeah.
Cheers, man.
Thanks,
See you
guys. Thanks
later.
very much for having me on.